payment on a home, which is part of the American dream and their aspiration, but do it in a way that allows them to actually get on the path to achieving that goal and that dream.
So you have been vice president for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
The steps that you're talking about now, why haven't you done them already?
Well, first of all, we had to recover as an economy, and we have done that. I'm very proud of the work that we have done that has brought inflation down to less than 3%. The work that we have done to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for seniors. Donald Trump said he was going to do a number of things, including allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices. Never happened. We did it. So now, as I travel in the state of Georgia and around our country, the number of seniors that have benefited, I was in Nevada recently, a grandmother who showed me her receipts. And before we capped the cost of insulin for seniors at $35 a month, she was paying hundreds of dollars, up to thousands of dollars a month for her insulin. She's not doing that any longer.
You maintain Bidenomics is a success.
I maintain that when we do the work of bringing down prescription medication for the American people, including capping the cost of the annual cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000, when we do what we did in the first year of being in office to extend the child tax credit so that we cut child poverty in America by over 50%, when we do what we have done to invest in the American people and bringing manufacturing back to the United States so that we created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, bringing business back to America, what we have done to improve the supply chain so we're not relying on foreign governments to supply American families with their basic needs, I'll say that that's good work. There's more to do, but that's good work.
I want to get some clarity on where you stand on some key policy issues. Energy is a big one. When you were in Congress, you supported the Green New Deal. And in 2019, you said, quote, "There is no question I'm in favor of banning fracking." Fracking, as you know, is a pretty big issue, particularly in your must-win state of Pennsylvania.
Sure.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020, that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
You're
In
lying!
2019, I believe, at a town hall, you said you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes. So it changed in that campaign?
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward. I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
What made you change that position at the time?
Well, let's be clear. My values have not changed. I believe it is very important that we take seriously what we must do
looking down a lot,
to
guys.
guard against what is a clear crisis in terms of the climate. And to do that, we can do what we have accomplished thus far. The Inflation Reduction Act, what we have done to invest, by my calculation, over probably $1 trillion over the next 10 years, investing in a clean energy economy. What we've already done, creating over 300,000 new clean energy jobs. That tells me, from my experience as vice president, we can do it without banning fracking. In fact, Dana, excuse me, I cast the tie-breaking vote.
You got her name wrong.
That actually increased leases for fracking.
Yeah.
As vice president. So I'm very clear about where I stand.
And was there some policy or
Trump versus
scientific
Trump.
data that you saw that you said, oh, okay, I get it now?
What I have seen is that we can grow and we can increase a thriving clean energy economy without banning fracking.
Okay. Another issue, big one, is immigration.
Mhm.
As vice president, you were tasked with addressing the root causes of migration in southern countries and
Northern part of Central America.
the northern part
Yeah.
of Central America that affects the southern border of the U.S. During the Biden-Harris administration, there were record numbers of illegal border crossings. Why did the Biden-Harris administration wait 3.5 years to implement sweeping asylum restrictions?
Well, first of all, the root causes work that I did as vice president, that I was asked to do by the president, has actually resulted in a number of benefits, including historic investments by American businesses in that region. The number of immigrants coming from that region has actually reduced since we began that work. But I will say this, that Joe Biden and I and our administration worked with members of the United States Congress on an immigration issue that is very significant to the American people and to our security, which is the border. And through bipartisan work, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, a bill was crafted, which we supported, which I support. And Donald Trump got word of this bill that would have contributed to securing our border. And because he believes that it would not have helped him politically, he told his folks in Congress, don't put it forward. He killed the bill. A border security bill that would have put 1,500 more agents on the border. And let me tell you something, the Border Patrol endorsed the bill. And I'm sure in large part because they knew they were working around the clock and 1,500 more agents would help them. That bill would have allowed us to increase seizures of fentanyl. Ask any community in America that has been devastated by
You don't need a
fentanyl,
bill. You
what
do the
passing that
executive
bill
order.
would have done to address their concern and a pain that they've
So you would-
experienced.
So you would push that legislation again. I just want to
Not
ask
only
about
push it, I will make sure that it comes to my desk and I would sign it.
just one other question about
You-
something that you said in 2019 when you first ran. There was a debate. You raised your hand when asked whether or not the border should be decriminalized. Do you still believe that?
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws
Oh my God.
that have to be followed and enforced that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally, and there should be consequence. And let's be clear, in this race, I'm the only person who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations who traffic in guns, drugs, and human beings. I'm the only person in this race who actually served a border state as Attorney General to enforce our laws, and I would enforce our laws as president going forward. I recognize the problem.
Generally speaking, how should voters
Wow, Dana just went
look
past
at
that.
some of the changes that you've made,
fact checking,
that
no
you've
nothing.
explained some of here in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information? Is it because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're saying now is going to be your policy moving forward?
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, and I have worked on it, that the climate crisis is real, that it is an urgent matter to which we should apply metrics that include holding ourselves to deadlines around time. We did that with the Inflation Reduction Act. We have set
Tim
goals
Moynihan
for the
has a
United
good
States of
one.
America and by extension, the globe around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, as an example. That value has not changed. My value around what we need to do to secure our border, that value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed. So that is the reality of it. And 4 years of being vice president, I'll tell you, one of the aspects to your point is traveling the country extensively. I mean, I'm here in Georgia. I think somebody told me 17 times since I've been vice president in Georgia alone. I believe it is important to build consensus. And it is important to find a common place of understanding of where we can actually solve problems.
On that note, you had a lot of Republican speakers at the convention. Will
Yeah.
you appoint a Republican to your cabinet?
Yes, I would.
Anyone
Yes,
in
I
mind?
would. No one in particular in mind. We got 68 days to go with this election, so I'm not putting the cart before the
68 days
horse,
to
but
go.
I would. I think it's really important. I have spent my career inviting
Wow, I've never
diversity
seen
of
anyone look down
opinion.
so
I think
much.
it's important to
Uh-huh.
have people at the table when some of the most important decisions are being made that have different views, different experiences. And I think it would be to the benefit of the American public to have a member of my cabinet who was a
Marxism
Republican.
indeed.
That was just the start of our wide-ranging conversation, and we have some never-before-shared details about the phone call that changed everything between President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. I'm just curious, staying on President Biden, When he called you and said he was pulling out of the race, what was that like? And did he offer to endorse you right away, or did you ask for it?
It was a Sunday. So here, I'll give you a little too much information.
Go for it. There's no such thing, Madam Vice President.
And her running mate. I asked him about some of the controversies that have sprung up since Harris put him on the ticket.
Governor Walz, the country is just starting to get to know you. I want to ask you a question about how you've described your service in the National Guard. You said that you carried weapons in war, but you have never deployed actually in a war zone. A campaign official said that you misspoke. Did you?
Ooh, boys. Okay. All right. It's an ad for CNN. So we're gonna let it rip here during the ad, and know that we'll of course cut right back. We have the best producer team that the internet can possibly buy on hand. We won't miss another second of what is a nightmare interview. What is going on? CNN actually called out Camilla. They called out Queen Kamala. They called out Kamala. This is crazy. This is crazy. Okay, here we go. We're gonna lock and load here on some of the more fascinating and unbelievable moments from this interview. Again, we are live right now. It's just a commercial break, so stick with us. We'll jump right back to this on-camera absolute tire fire that's happening with Kamala Harris. First off, she looks rough. Kamala looks. She looks like she's aged like 10 years since the DNC. Not really a great look. Also not a great look. Asking what she would do on day one since she's already technically the president. Yes, Kamala, you're president, right? You know you're in power now, right? So you're complaining about things now. What like you're in power, right? So like, what would you say you do here today, Junior? Here's what Kamala had to say. Not a great look. Listen.
If you are elected, what would you do on day one in the White House?
Well, there are a
Definitely
number of
trick
things.
question.
I will tell you, first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class. When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that people are ready for a new way forward.
Hold on.
In a way that...
See, I can pause it now. We're not live back yet. Again, trust me, it's just commercials rolling on CNN. We will cut right back as soon as they're live. A new way forward. You are in charge. You're in power right now. Your party's had power for 12 of the last 16 years. You've technically had like supermajorities in the House, Senate, White House. Barack Obama is running shadow government, even while Donald Trump was in it. You were running everything. America's ready for a new way forward. She hasn't cackled once. This is interesting. Also, look at her. Woof, Buzz, your girlfriend. What's going on? Oh, no. Yikes. Droopy dog over here. America's ready for a new way forward. You're the way. You are the one who's charting the path right now. Lady Magellan. Hello. You're steering the ship.
in a way that generations of Americans have been fueled by hope and by optimism. I think, sadly, in the last decade, we have had in the former president someone who has really been pushing an agenda and an environment that is about diminishing the character and the strength of who we are as Americans.
She goes right to Trump. She's asked, what are you going to do since you're technically in power? You're saying the nation's in shambles. We agree. What are you going to do about it? You're the reason it's in shambles. So how are you going to change anything? Aren't you the problem? And she goes, Trump! Trump! Here we go. Back to CNN.
Atlanta, Georgia, and our exclusive interview with
We're
Vice
live
President
now.
Kamala Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim
Whatever
Walz.
credibility
In just
they
12
had,
days, Harris
CNN
will
has
meet
definitely
Donald
lost
Trump
it
on a
all.
debate stage in Philadelphia. And when I say meet, I mean literally meet. Would
Can't
you
wait for
believe
that.
they have never talked face to face? The only time they've even been in the same room was when Harris was a senator watching Trump's State of the Union address. Now it's Trump watching Harris on the campaign trail with money and momentum behind her and making her case directly to voters.
As voters are getting to know Kamala Harris, they want answers on how she will make their lives better. She heard that here at Sandfly Barbecue in Savannah.
What we're going to do to increase access to capital for small businesses, I'll be rolling out next week. Part of what we're going to be doing in terms of a tax credit.
On the trail, she talks about her experience, years in the courtroom as a district attorney and eventually California's attorney general. She wants to reframe the contest as the prosecutor versus the felon.
I know Donald Trump's type. I've been dealing with them my whole
Fake ass
career.
accent.
The former president is turning to a well-defined playbook of personal attacks.
I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as
God, I hope
black.
they ask that
And
question.
in
I want to
just
hear what she
12
says.
days, the nominees will meet face-to-face for the first time.
She's not a good debater. She's not a smart person. She doesn't want to debate.
If you got something to say, say it to my face.
I want to ask you about your opponent, Donald Trump.
Okay.
I was a little bit surprised. People might be surprised to hear that you have never interacted with him, met him face to face.
Mhm.
That's going to change soon. But what I want to ask you about is what he said last month. He suggested that you happened to turn black recently for political purposes,
Mhm.
questioning a core part of your identity.
Yeah.
Any,
Same old tired playbook. Next question, please.
that's it?
Oh, there's a first
Wow.
cackle.
Let's
First
talk
cackle.
about some foreign policy issues
She's
that
moved
would be
past
on your
that.
plate
Like, it's
if
not
you
a
become
thing. 'Cause
commander
she
in
doesn't have
chief.
anything.
President Biden has tried unsuccessfully to end the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. He's been doing it for months and months, along with you. Would you do anything differently? For example, would you withhold some U.S. weapons shipments to Israel? That's what a lot of people on the progressive left want you to do.
Let me be very clear. I'm unequivocal and unwavering in my commitment to Israel's defense and its ability to defend itself. And that's not going to change. But let's take a step back. October 7, 1,200 people were massacred. Many young people who were simply attending a music festival. Women were horribly raped. As I said then, I say today, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. And we have got to get a deal done. We were in Doha. We have to get a deal done. This war must end.
And in the meantime,
And we must get a deal that is about getting the hostages out. I've met with the families of the American hostages. Let's get the hostages out. Let's get the ceasefire done.
but no change in policy in terms of arms and so forth.
No, we have to get a deal done. Dana, we have to get a deal done. When you look at the significance of this to the families, to the people who are living in that region, a deal is not only the right thing to do to end this war, but will unlock so much of what must happen next. I remain committed since I've been on October 8 to what we must do to work toward a two-state solution where Israel is secure and in equal measure, the Palestinians have security and self-determination and dignity.
Governor Walz, the country is
Why
just
do you lean
starting
in
to
like
get to know
that?
you.
Such
I
a
want to
weird
ask
thing.
you a question about how you've described your service in the National Guard. You said that you carried weapons in war, but you have never deployed actually in a war zone. A campaign official said that you misspoke. Did you?
Well, first of all, I'm incredibly proud. I've done 24 years of wearing the uniform of this country. Equally proud of my service in a public school classroom, whether it's Congress or the governor. My record speaks for itself, but I think people are coming to get to know me. I speak like they do. I speak candidly. I wear my emotions on my sleeves, and I speak especially passionately about about our children being shot in schools and around guns. So I think people know me. They know who I am. They know where my heart is. And again, my record has been out there for over 40 years to speak for itself.
And
You didn't answer the
idea
question.
that you said that you were in war.
Yeah.
Did you misspeak as the campaign has said?
Yeah, I said we were talking about, in this case, this was after a school shooting, the ideas of carrying these weapons of war. And my wife, the English you told my grammar is not always correct. But again, if it's not this, it's an attack on my children for showing love for me, or it's an attack on my dog. I'm not going to do that. And the one thing I'll never do is I'll never demean another member's service in any way. I never have, and I never will.
I just one other question, because again, this is all new.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
this was not however many days ago. This was
It's not
not on
new.
either of your bingo cards, especially yours. You had to clarify that you had said that you and your wife used IVF, but it turned out you used a different kind of fertility in order to have children. And then when you ran for Congress in 2006, your campaign repeatedly made false statements about a 1995 arrest for drunk and reckless driving.
Jeez.
What do you say to voters
Holy
who
smokes.
aren't sure whether
Holy
they can
crap.
take you at your word?
Oh my God.
Well, I've been very public. I think they can see
Ouch.
my students come out, former folks I've served with, and they vouch for me. I certainly own my mistakes when I make them. The one
There
thing
you
I'll
go.
tell you is I wished in this country wouldn't have to do this. I spoke about our infertility issues because it's hell, and families know this. And I spoke about the treatments that were available to us that had those beautiful children there. That's quite a contrast in folks that are trying to take those rights away from us. And so I think people know who I am. They know that record. They've seen that. I've taught thousands of students. I've been out there, and I won't apologize for speaking passionately, whether it's guns in schools or protecting of reproductive rights. The contrast could not be clearer between what we're running against. The vice president's position on this has been clear. And I think most Americans get it if you've been through that. I don't think they're cutting hairs on IVF or IUI. I think what they're cutting hairs on is an abortion ban and the ability to be able to deny families the chance to have a beautiful child.
No abortion ban will happen.
Up next, the moment that changed everything when Kamala Harris got a phone call from President Biden that he was dropping out of the race.
It was a Sunday. So here, I'll give you a little too much information.
Go for it. There's no such thing, Madam Vice President.
Tackle.
My family was staying with us, and including my baby nieces.
Speaking of those baby nieces, the vice president also opens up about a viral picture from the convention that meant so much to so many. And Tim Walz talks about that convention moment with his son that brought many viewers to tears.
You were speaking, the
Using
camera
his
caught
kid
him,
to
so
deflect.
incredibly proud of you, so emotional, saying, "That's my dad."
Yeah, I don't know as a father I could have ever imagined that.
Okay. Here's another. It's amazing how much they need to. They are padding this interview. Can you believe they have to run like an ad for Kamala Harris before every single segment and do all these big cutaways from the campaign and all these blocks? Now we're in another commercial break. This is a commercial, again, a commercial break. We will be live once again on CNN. We're live right now, unlike Kamala Harris, who didn't have the stones, the guts to actually do this live, the iron in your spine to actually do this interview live. And now we know why. Now we know why. This is a nightmare. Okay. So salty, then the sweet. All right, really quick. The salty is that CNN is running like a Kamala ad, effectively, like every one of these packages that they call them that they run before they do the interview. It's like so doughy and gooey about Kamala Harris. But then they get to the actual questions. And Dana or Donna, isn't it amazing how they're so upset about the way you say Camilla's name? And then she calls Dana Bash the wrong name. Apparently it's Donna Bash, Dina Bash. I don't know. Who the hell cares? I'm quite free. Call me whatever you want. It's not, don't check my mentions. And people call me a lot of naughty names. Don't care, right? Don't care. Don't look up my initials, right?
JD got that
Okay, so here we go. Breaking, I've gotten a hold of the full Kamala Harris interview. J.D. Vance. JD Vance. Okay. Well, I mean, we've already played you the clip, but like JD was right here, right? This is the dumb answer in Miss America pageant that was so famous. This is made Babylon Bee. Tim Walz spends entire CNN interview making balloon animals to distract attention from Kamala Harris, saying this: "I'm in favor of banning fracking," says Kamala Harris on the debate stage in 2020. She said it. Here we go. This is a better fact check than you'll get at any of these corporate media companies. Here's the clip. Kamala Harris saying, "I am in favor of banning fracking."
Question, I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yeah, and starting with what we can do on day one around public lands, right? And then there has to be legislation. But yes, and this is something I've taken on in California. I have a history of working on this issue. And to your point, we have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of communities.
I'm in favor of banning fracking. First segment is totally epic, says Trump campaign, Tim Murtaugh. Pennsylvania is looking at her like she's crazy. She said in 2019 that she wanted to ban fracking. Now she claims that she doesn't want to ban fracking and says her position hasn't changed. This is, you're done, man. You're toast. You're cooked. Kamala's cooked. Trump's going to destroy this lady. Trump's going to destroy this lady.
But I know her
you're going to have to upload this, okay, with like a put in your birth date, all right, to make sure you're over the age of 18 to watch what is going to happen on stage when Donald Trump and Kamala Harris meet. Man, that fracking answer was painful. Kamala Harris, I never said I wanted to ban fracking. 2019, she literally says she wants to ban fracking. It's like video doesn't exist. Here's Vivek saying, in 2019, Kamala Harris said she absolutely would ban fracking. At present, she says she won't ban fracking. Tonight on CNN, she says her position hadn't changed. At least one of those three statements has to be false. It has to be a lie. This is just logic. It's not partisan point. Okay, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Back to CNN Live
from Savannah, Georgia, and our exclusive interview with the Democratic presidential and vice presidential nominees, Vice President Kamala Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. It's hard to believe it was just 39 days ago President Biden shocked the world via tweet. That's how we found out he was dropping his re-election bid. But before he tweeted the news, Biden called his vice president. And for the first time, we are hearing about that phone call and exactly what Kamala Harris was doing when she answered. But we started this discussion with the moment that set all of this in motion, CNN's presidential debate, and whether President Biden was strong enough to lead this nation again.
Vice President Harris, you were a very staunch defender of President Biden's capacity to serve another 4 years. Right after the debate, you insisted that President Biden is extraordinarily strong. Given where we are now, do you have any regrets about what you told the American people?
No, not at all. Not at all. I have served with President Biden for almost 4 years now, and I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest honors of my career, truly. He cares so deeply about the American people. He is so smart and loyal to the American people. And I have spent hours upon hours with him, be it in the Oval Office or the Situation Room. He has the intelligence, the commitment, and the judgment and disposition that I think the American people rightly deserve in their president. By contrast, the former president has none of that. And so, one, I am so proud to have served as vice president to Joe Biden. And two, I am so proud to be running with Tim Walz for president of the United States and to bring America what I believe the American people deserve, which is a new way forward, and turn the page on the last decade of what I believe has been contrary to where the spirit of our country really lies.
With the last decade, of course, the last 3.5 years has been part of your administration.
I'm talking about an era that started about a decade ago, where there is some suggestion, warped, I believe it to be, that the measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down, instead of where I believe most Americans are, which is to believe that the true measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift
beat
up.
off.
That's what's at stake as much as any other detail that we could discuss in this election.
I'm sorry.
Because
I didn't know my mic was
we
on.
haven't had a chance to talk. I'm just curious, staying on President Biden, when he called you and said he was pulling out of the race, What was that like? And did he offer to endorse you right away, or did you ask for it?
It was a Sunday. So here, I'll give you a little too much information.
Go for it. There's no such thing, Madam Vice President.
My family was staying with us, and including my baby nieces. And we had just had pancakes and, Auntie, can I have more bacon? Yes, I'll make you more bacon. And then
Oh my God.
we were sitting down to do a puzzle. And the phone rang, and it was Joe Biden. And he told me what he had decided to do. And I asked him, "Are you sure?" And he said yes. And that's how I learned about it.
And what about the endorsement? Did you ask for it?
And he was very clear that he was going to support me.
So when he called to tell you, he said, "I'm pulling out of the race and I'm going to support you."
Well, my first thought was not about me, to be honest with you. My first thought was about him, to be honest. I think history is going to show a number of things about Joe Biden's presidency.
He was
I
the
think
worst
history is going
president
to
ever.
show that in so many ways it was transformative, be it on what we have accomplished around finally investing in America's infrastructure, investing in new economies, in new industries, what we have done to bring our allies back together and have confidence in who we are as America and grow that alliance. What we have done to stand true to our principles, including the one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I think history is going to show not only has Joe Biden led an administration that has achieved those extraordinary successes, but the character of the man is one that he has been in his life and career, including as a president, quite selfless and puts the American people first.
Oh, this is so bad.
Passionate defense of the man who chose her to be his running mate 4 years ago. 4 years later, Harris made a choice of her own. And with Governor Walz's rise to national prominence, a star was born at the convention, Gus Walz. We'll hear about that moment between father and son, and the woman who could make history in the Oval Office on this iconic photo.
Madam Vice President, the photograph that has gone viral. You were speaking, one of your grandnieces that you were just talking about was watching you accept the nomination.
This is bad. This photo, obviously that was staged. Him talking about his son Gus, that whole thing is staged as well too. Like, this has got to be the weakest CNN interview I've ever seen them ever do. Just, I don't understand how people believe that this is something that's going to help Kamala Harris, and it really isn't, because all it does is confirm what everyone's been saying. Well, everyone that's conservative has been saying, and then you have the folks that are, all in Kamala's side. They're not going to walk away with anything of substance from this conversation. They're just going to say, "See, she said it there," like the whole fracking thing. That is going to be a whole conversation about Kamala says she was, or she says she didn't do fracking, or she, her values didn't change. Which is it? Just like everyone's been saying. So, and that's just fracking. We haven't even got to like some of the other issues that Kamala has been caught in lies about, especially supporting illegal immigration. I think Dana brought it up where she had said she wanted to ban, or it'd be criminalized, and she really didn't even answer it though. And so that just kind of tells you that she's trying to like give these gray answers, so she believes that, well, that's not what I meant, or that's not what I said about these things. Back to Benny.
National Guard. You said that you carried weapons in war, but you have never deployed actually in a war zone. A campaign official said that you misspoke. Did you?
Well, first of all, I'm incredibly proud. I've done 24 years of wearing the uniform of this country. Equally proud of my service in a public school classroom, whether it's Congress or the governor. My record speaks for itself, but I think people are coming to get to know me. I speak like they do.
Dude, these people, ooh, it's like it's so bad. It's so evil because they're not only are they not answering the question, they're just saying, I'm going to just say something else, something entirely differently. Now, a real journalist would be like, and I think Dana, Donna, Bash, whatever, has actually done a really good job here. And this line of questioning was incredible. But you need to say, you haven't answered the question. I didn't ask you about people like that I speak like they do. That's not the question. That's not the question. The question is, bro, you lied like hundreds, thousands of times. You've lied about your record, and people call that stolen valor because it is. What say you, scum?
I speak candidly. I wear my emotions on my sleeves, and I speak especially passionately about our children being shot in schools and around guns. So I think
the question. It's not the question was not about school shootings.
People know me. They know who I am. They know where my heart is. And again, my record has been out there for over 40 years to speak for itself.
And the idea that you said that you were in war. Yeah. Did you misspeak as the campaign has said?
Yeah, I said we were talking about, in this case, this was after a school shooting, the ideas of carrying these weapons of war. And my wife, the English teacher, told me my grammar is not always correct. But again, if it's not this, it's an attack on my children.
Look at this. Then I'm the victim. So I steal your valor. I take the valor of men who actually had the stones in their shorts to go to war. I ditched them. I left them high and dry. I was their leader, and I abandoned them. And then I say, you know what? If it's not this, it's something else. I'm the victim here. I'm the victim. Again, this is probably the closest to enemy fire that Tim Walz has ever come. Wow. Continue.
For showing love for me, or it's an attack on my dog. I'm not going to do that. And the one thing I'll never do is I'll never demean another member's.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we are back. Live. Let's go.
From Savannah, Georgia, and our CNN exclusive interview with Vice President Kamala Harris and her running mate, who was supposed to be, if you listened to some experts, a big name, a prominent leader from a swing state, Pennsylvania or Arizona. But it is a little known guy outside of his home state, where Minnesota nice is a source of pride. But behind all of that folksy humor and flannel, Tim Walz is far from just being Mr. Nice Guy when it comes to needling Donald Trump.
Governor, you obviously have spoken to voters all over your state for years.
Yeah.
What are you learning in a place like Georgia?
We're seeing explosion in small business growth. The one thing is workforce and childcare, because workers have to have childcare.
Campaigning with Tim Walz,
Don't do it.
finding his role in this historic campaign.
Would you be my running mate and let's get this thing on the road?
I would be honored, Madam Vice President.
After bursting onto the national stage with this word.
These guys are just weird.
Known as a folksy father of two from rural America, now a running mate who is not holding back.
Listen to the guy. He's talking about Hannibal Lecter and shocking sharks and just whatever crazy thing pops into his mind.
And finding his own rhythm with his new boss.
What'd you order?
Brisket and greens and mac and cheese.
What about you?
I had the brisket and coleslaw on this.
And what about the spice situation, the Tabasco? What's happening with that?
I'm going to let him speak for himself.
The Vice President's growing peppers at her residence, so she's trying to bring me along on this. You know, Minnesotans.
It's okay.
I'm getting there.
It's okay. You just.
Oh, God, it's so awkward.
I
Oh,
just have to ask you both about two standout moments, aside, of course, from the addresses that you both gave, but standout moments that were perhaps unexpected during the convention. You mentioned one of them, Governor. A moment that you shared, that the world shared with your son, Gus. You were speaking, the camera caught him, so incredibly proud of you, so emotional, saying, "That's my dad."
Yeah, I don't know as a father I could have ever imagined that. I'm grateful for so many reasons to be on this ticket, but that moment, to understand what was really important, to have my son feel a sense of pride in me, that I was trying to do the right thing. And it was, you try and protect your kids, it brings notoriety and things, but it was just such a visceral, emotional moment that I'm just
almost out of socket.
I'm grateful I got to experience it, and I'm so proud of him. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of Hope. I'm proud of Gwen. She's a wonderful mother, and these are great kids. And I think the one thing is talking about the era we're in is our politics can be better. It can be different. We can we can show some of these things and we can have families involved in this. And I hope that there was I hope people felt that out there, and I hope they hug their kids a little tighter, because you just never know, and life can be kind of hard.
And last question, Madam Vice President, the photograph that has gone viral. You were speaking, one of your grandnieces that you were just talking
Yes.
about was watching you accept the nomination. You didn't explicitly talk about gender or race in your speech, but it obviously means a lot to a lot of people, and that viral picture really says it. What does it mean to you?
You know, I am running because I believe that I am the best person to do this job at this moment, for all Americans, regardless of race and gender. But I did see that photograph, and I was deeply touched by it. And you're right, it's the back of her head, her two little braids, and then I'm in the front of the photograph, obviously speaking. And,
what are you talking about?
It's very humbling. It's very humbling in many ways.
Did she talk to you about it afterwards?
Oh, she had a lot to talk about. She had a lot.
This is it?
She
This is an
listens to
interview?
everything,
It's
and
not
she
an
listens
interview.
to everything.
Give you your hot takes?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Madam Vice President, Governor Walz, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank
for
you.
having
Thank you,
us.
Dana. Thank you.
This was Vice President Harris's first real unscripted setting where
First
voters
real?
could see and hear her explain some of her policy positions now and how they differ from before she became vice president and why. And this was the first we heard those details about an extraordinary phone call from a president dropping out of the race and endorsing his vice president, something that will certainly go down in history. CNN has also invited both President Trump and Senator J.D. Vance to sit down with us. We hope to bring that interview to you as well. We have plenty of CNN special coverage ahead. I want to go to my friend and colleague, Abby Phillip, who is standing by with some of the best political minds in the business. Abby?
We have them all here. Dana, you've given us a lot to chew on. Our hats off to you. Thank you very much. Stick
All right.
around,
No
though. We will make sure to
credibility.
come back to you throughout the next hour. I want to get in the room here to get some initial reactions with
Hold on. Let me just use on the panel. Let me see if there's anyone from Trump world on the panel.
how Vice
Let's just go
President
ahead.
Harris did
Let's
she
just go ahead
meet
and, like-
the moment?
Yeah, I think she did what she needed to do.
No, she
what
didn't.
She
What
needed
the
to
f-
do was be the same person that people have seen on the stage for the last month, and have seen a new sense of sort of confidence,
Okay.
of calm.
I want to hear
and,
Scott Jennings. Hold on. Just
comfortable,
let's hear Scott Jennings. He's like the
comfort that we haven't
Republican
seen
on the
before,
panel.
from her. We didn't see certainly the last time she ran.
And then
She
we're
was,
going to let her rip.
She was very connected to her word. She seemed strong. She seemed competent. She seemed like someone who could be president of the United States. That was the first test. One thing, because I know we got a lot of opinions here.
We have time for yours. Don't
Yes,
worry.
but I think well, two things then. I think that she handled the issue of her changes or perceived changes in policy pretty well. I mean, I think the idea that her values have been the same and have been consistent was a good bridge there. One thing that I want to note is we were asking the question earlier, how will she handle the president, and will she separate herself from the president? And there might be some political logic to doing that. She's talking about turning the page. Does she want to be a continuation? That's what the Republicans will want to make her out to be. I'll give Scott the opportunity to do it in a second. But as she spoke, I thought it showed a certain character, the way she talked about Joe Biden. She didn't run away from him. She gave him, I think, his due. She understands that there's some political risk to that. That actually was elevating to me in a way that I hadn't expected. So I think on the whole, this was a good night. It wasn't a huge, I don't think she moved the ball that much forward, but she certainly didn't fall back.
The do no harm principle of politicking here.
Yeah,
Audie?
I mean, interviews, they can be combat, they can be a conversation. And what she needed to do
Let
was
Scott talk.
communicate. And so often in the past, she comes to an interview in a way
Nobody
with her
cares.
to be the interrogator. And people already know she's good at asking sharp, tough questions of people who she feels
really?
deserve scrutiny.
Do we know
it's
that?
her being under that scrutiny that has been where the stakes have been higher. And I think today it did show that she has the ability to sit down and have that back and forth that Republicans are talking about. Can she really do it?
Go, Scott
So
Jennings,
How
go.
many more times? I don't know how much that matters. And I do get a little nervous that in the media we're preoccupied with like how much access, how many conversations is she going to have in the settings?
Oh yeah,
we
you know,
deem
reporters
most
are just
valuable
upset
to
when they
voters.
can't
When
do their
this is a
jobs
campaign
and ask
that is
questions.
actually making a mark in an interesting way, reaching out
There
to
isn't a
people
First
directly.
Amendment.
But Assad, you have also spent a couple of times now interviewing her. What did you make of how she handled it? I mean, to David's point, a little bit more comfortable now than she has been in the past.
Yeah, I think there's been a consistent story of growth. She's been in more of these settings. I think we saw that somewhat
This is
tonight.
amazing.
I also think to the question about how policy positions have
It's like they're
changed, so
talking
we're
about their
clearly ready
like
with an answer about how
2-year-old
the values have been consistent.
going
For
to
me, one of
gymnastics
the,
class and learning how to
one
do
of
a
the lines that
somersault.
stuck out was, this is a new, I think people are ready for a new way forward. She said
Yeah,
that
it does.
a couple
It does.
times. It goes to David's point. I don't think
It
there's
does
a
sound like they're
policy
scared.
separation that they've created with Biden. Obviously,
right.
she gave a kind of
I
personal
want to hear Scott Jennings because
defense of
he's
the-
been going
but they're also
viral
very
on
clearly
like his
trying to position
takedowns
her as a
of
change
this
candidate in the same way that Donald Trump is positioning himself
But-
as a change candidate. In some ways, it feels as if that's going to be the crux of what this comes down to in November, is whether that is bought by the electorate or not.
And interestingly, there is some polling to suggest that it's a battle right now. It's actually a live ball.
It seems that that's where this might live and die, but I think it's really interesting because for someone who doesn't want to talk
Scott
about
Jennings,
agenda,
go.
who doesn't want to kind of put that identity forward, it is allowing her to make the case of change without kind of saying those words. And so I thought that was really in the air of this
She's in
speech. But to the
power.
point about normal versus weird, the
party's
future
been in
versus
power
past
for the
dichotomy
last
that they're
16
trying to create,
years.
I think they landed that tonight. I think they want to present them as a package that is relatable to people and that is someone you feel familiar, whose story is familiar, whose message is familiar and relatable. And I
There's
think that's
no way
something
they
that
got
she's
all that from
grown
her
in, and we saw
interview.
that this evening.
Interesting, Ashley.
So I think I would break this down into 3 parts: values, vision,
do
and her
Scott
voice.
Jennings last.
And I think
Okay.
she made
All
it
right.
very clear that she is still committed to her values, to be an American, to be a prosecutor, even though she may have changed on some positions. And she clearly
No
outlined where she had changed.
Oh my gosh.
I think on the vision,
It's like
she
7
brought the-
against 1
She attempted to
on
draw the
CNN.
contrast.
This is
without
unwatchable.
Talking about Donald Trump, but still being very clear and not.
She
berating
literally
her
lied
current
about
boss,
fracking.
actually. And when you
She
think
lied about the border.
opposite ticket of JD
She
Vance,
lied about
third
Joe Biden's
Donald Trump's
health.
Vice president isn't even
In
on
this
the ticket
interview.
anymore. We don't need to go down why that is the case, but she was clearly able to draw her vision for how she wants to take the country forward with her
CNN's got to go
opportunity
bankrupt after this.
economy, and then her voice. I think so many Americans want to know, who is she and does she have command of her voice? And she answered every question. Now, you might not like the way she answered them, but she answered them as a capable,
She
qualified
answered
leader.
every
And I do
question.
think I think she moved the ball forward a little bit.
Joe,
maybe she
she
answered
answered every
touchdown tonight, but she
question.
definitely moved down the field.
All right, Scott.
I agree with Asted about this idea of the question of who's going to change will be the fundamental defining question of the election. And I was sort of watching this, holistically. What is she saying? What does she look like? What's on the screen? So at the beginning, when she's talking about Biden and their record, our screen said, this is called the Chiron, the headline at the bottom. It said, Harris stands by Biden administration economic record. She is making it clear that she will embrace and be a continuation of Biden's economic policy, his record, what they've done. She offered no remorse, no regrets, no introspection about anything they've done. She continued to blame inflation on this fantasy price gouging idea. She had no additional thoughts on the economic situation in the country or what they've done beyond just saying, Joe Biden and I have done a great job. Now, if I were the Trump people, I would be salivating over the idea that that's how they are going to run the race. I don't believe it's tenable. I also thought it was interesting that she didn't take any responsibility at the end for telling the American people that Joe Biden was fine and he was strong. I mean, we all know that's not true. That's why he's out of the race. And she's still standing by the idea that he was fine and he's strong and that he's fine today. Nobody believes that. And I just think at some point, then why isn't he running?
Because he's too old, point blank. Same reason why Donald Trump probably shouldn't be running, because he's too old and out of touch.
I think most Americans know the truth. And when you're running to be president and you're willing to look them in the face and tell them something they know that is not true, it does speak a little bit to your character.
Scott, and, curious what you think about this, Axe. Will voters
All right,
care
enough.
about that part
Okay,
of
you
it,
wanted to
which
see
is
that
kind of
Scott Jennings is the
backward-looking?
one Republican token that they trot on there, and he's been going viral recently by effectively just defending President Trump, and Republicans are calling out this absolute ass clown circus that's happening.
All right, well, I'm going to end it there. Hoping to have some more insight on this, but feel free to jump on Benny's stream. I restreamed it. Thanks, Benny. But stay tuned for some other videos because the election is an important thing that's happening right now, and it's you know, a lot of things are on the line, and you know, letting Kamala win will just destroy America. So, but yeah, like and subscribe.